I'm Kelsey Klobosky. I'm a digital accessibility specialist here at Accessible Web. So completing manual audits is a major part of my day-to-day work here. And today we'll be talking about an overview of how to approach a manual accessibility audit. Manual audits rely on human judgment, so they're a really valuable step in catching accessibility issues that are missed by automated accessibility scanners and tools. Manual audits are most effective when paired with accessibility testing with users with disabilities, but today we're going to be focusing on the manual audit process specifically. So completing an effective manual accessibility audit involves 3 phases: plan the audit, conduct the audit, and share and track the results. In phase 1, plan the audit, you're preparing for success. So in planning your audit, you first need to choose the requirements you're testing against. We test against the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, but within those guidelines, you still need to choose a conformance level. So for example, a common goal is WCAG 2.2 AA. After you've chosen your requirements, select sample pages. Most websites are so large that completing an audit of every page may not be feasible. When that's the case, you can be more efficient by selecting a representative sample of pages to discover the types of issues that are present on the site overall, and then your team can work on addressing those sites more globally. There are a few common strategies for selecting sample pages. One is to audit your pages with high traffic that a lot of users see. Another is to audit important user flows. So for example, on an e-commerce site, the path from product page to shopping cart to checkout page may be a really important user flow for your goals. So all 3 pages should be included in your audit. A third strategy is to audit pages that use common templates found throughout your site. So any issues that you uncover and fix there will populate widely. In phase 2, conduct the audit. Your goal should be thorough, accurate results. For a thorough audit, it's important to proceed systematically. And there's 2 really common strategies to do this. One is for each page, proceed through the list of requirements, or alternatively, for each requirement, proceed through the list of pages. We'll look at an example later in the presentation. As you're conducting the audit, it's important to document the findings and describe issues so they can be found or reproduced. This is especially important if you are not going to be the same person who will be completing the fixes. In addition to describing the issue in text, it can be really helpful to include things like code snippets, screenshots, or videos. Finally, phase 3 is to share and track the results. This is how you put your audit to work. In this phase, you're going to prioritize issues for remediation. There are various strategies to accomplish this, though in the interest of time, we're not going to go into detail at this moment, but there's various ways to approach this. It's also important to monitor progress so you can assign responsibility and accountability for fixes. You can build on your momentum, and you can celebrate success when you see how far the site has come. So now that's an overview of our process and our recommended process for approaching a manual audit. And now I'm going to switch over to RAMP so we can look at a quick example of how our manual audit grid supports these 3 phases of planning the audit, conducting the audit, and sharing and tracking results. All right. So I've switched over to our RAMP platform, and I am here in a demo site called Shroot Farms. And within that site, I'm on the manual auditing page. And this content is available in sites in RAMP. So on this view, this is a place where we really support tackling these 3 phases of a manual accessibility audit. So in our planning, we discussed choosing which requirements you're going to be testing against. And in our manual audit grid, you do this using our filter and sort tool. Here we can pick a WCAG rule set, and when we open our select component here, it lists all of the different WCAG levels of conformance that you might be choosing to test against. So 2.1 AA or 2.2 AA are definitely the most common ones that we see. So I'm going to keep it at 2.2 AA, view results. So I've selected my requirements, so now I need to go about choosing my sample pages. This grid has been partially filled out, but the way this is set up is each row of our table is a requirement within the success criteria level I've chosen, and each column is a page that I've added that I'm planning to audit. So as I'm adding when I've chosen my selected pages, I'm ready to add them in the column. I'm going to add a page, and let's say I want to add my forms page. So I'm going to add a display name. I'm going to choose from my existing pages in RAMP, or I can add a brand new URL path here if I need to. And I've added it to the grid, and now I've added a new column. Once I've added all of my sample pages, I'm ready to do that systematic process of moving through my manual audit. So here's where we talked about kind of those two approaches, and it's maybe a little bit easier to visualize looking at our table here. So one option, and this is probably the most common strategy, is to go page by page and go through every success criteria, where we take one page and we evaluate it really thoroughly against each of the requirements. That's a very common way to approach it, particularly as you become more comfortable and confident with manual auditing. However, another strategy is to go, in this case, row by row, choosing a requirement and testing every page for that requirement. This is an especially good strategy if you're new to manual auditing or aren't as comfortable or familiar with the tests or with the requirements, because you can really work with and get to know that test over multiple pages and get really confident and comfortable with it before moving on to the next one. In our grid, it supports completing this audit with each cell. When we click on the cell, it's going to give me information about this particular requirement, what our tests that we've developed for this requirement involve, and is going to give us the option to open our extension so that you can actually go in and perform the tests, document your results, including code snippets and screenshots. In the interest of time, I'm not going to dig too far into the test. We'd be happy to talk with you about that in more detail if you're interested. But at this point, this is sort of a high-level process overview. But once we perform these tests, then our status is going to be automatically updated here in the grid. And this is where we've got that sharing and tracking functionality. This is both to help track what manual auditing has been done or remains to be done, and then once your audit's complete, tracking what accessibility work has been done or remains to be done. The statuses we have available here, and you can see a few of them have been populated. And the status information is available via the visual icon. There is some text that will be exposed on hover as well, or you can access the status by accessing these cells with a screen reader. But a cell with a horizontal line is not tested. That means that no manual testing has been done for this requirement in this page using our tool. Partially tested or incomplete testing is a red half-filled triangle. This indicates that some tests have been completed, but there's still some tests that need to be done using our tool. Not applicable is a crosshatch icon. That indicates that you've determined that that requirement's not applicable for this specific page or this specific content that you're auditing. And then we have open tasks, which means you've completed all of the manual testing and you identified some issues for that requirement in that page, and they're still considered open in RAMP. They have an incomplete status. And then our final one, and the ultimate goal here, is completed, which is a green check mark that indicates that you've completed all of the manual tests and there's no open issues. So either you found no issues to begin with, or any issues that you did find have now been fixed and been marked as complete. So that's a very brief kind of bird level tour of our product and how it supports those three phases of completing a manual audit. Now with that, what can Accessible Web do to help? So first, of course, we have our web accessibility software, which is what we were just looking at, our RAMP platform. And there's other tools in there as well, in addition to the guided audit grid. We'll be sharing a discount code by the end of this presentation for that software platform. We also offer consulting and training where you can learn more about accessibility requirements, learn more about manual auditing, or many other accessibility topics. We offer accessibility audits if you want us to go in and do that comprehensive audit on your behalf and share the results with you through RAMP. That's absolutely a service we do. And voluntary product accessibility templates, or VPATs, and that's a formal report that essentially communicates the results of an accessibility audit. So that brings us to the end of my prepared remarks, and we are ready for discussion and questions. Thanks everyone for being here.